let's jump into some conversation for first-year coaches. A lot of different coaches have decided to take new jobs for the 2023 season. A lot of big positions, a lot of big brands, if you will, that will have some NIL resources and have some ability to go after some top talent. So looking at these coaches that are in a new position, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, it is a much less patient world for head coaches than it was a few years ago. You got the portal now. You can revamp a roster. USC going from 4-8 to playing for a Pac-12 title and being a Caleb Williams hamstring away from making the college football playoff. That's kind of the world that we're living in right now. Sonny Dykes took over a more experienced roster at TCU. They are playing in the college football playoff. In year one in Fort Worth for Sonny Dykes, they are playing for the college football playoff. So how do some of these coaches in their first year get the ship headed the right direction? And what do they need to do in the portal? Because USC made their living in the portal a season ago. So I'm going to go down the list here, tell you the primary concern for a lot of these guys and a lot of the positions I'd like to see addressed in year one for these coaches to give themselves a fighting chance to have some success and reach that ROI that is now expected of them across the college football landscape. Without further ado, Matt Rhule at Nebraska said, you know what, I'm going to go back to the college game. Loves the kids. He was at Baylor. Actually was on his team for a period of time at Baylor. Went to the pros. Ended up not being the case, not being a fit. Goes back to the college game. He's going to get that thing headed the right direction in Lincoln. But how does he do that? I think the primary concern for Matt Rhule lies on the defensive line. Because I've said it before, I cannot get out of my head the game they played against Ireland and seeing the the game in Ireland against Northwestern. They had just been deleted from the frame repeatedly in the defensive trenches where Northwestern runs inside zone, they run power, and they're just pushing them off the screen. Nebraska has a reputation historically of being a tough football team. That's why Matt Rhule is back. He has a history of coaching the defensive line, has a history of building really strong defensive trenches wherever he's been. That's a huge concern for Nebraska going forward. And so if I'm in the portal and I'm Matt Rhule and I got a list of priorities at the top of my list, and also the second row of my list is defensive line and defensive line, okay? That's how much that matters for them going forward. Getting the personnel from a talent perspective, but also the depth. Because you and I both know you can have a great first line of defense, but you better have some other big boys behind them that can also help carry the load as the season wears on. And in the Big Ten West, it's very winnable. It's extremely winnable. No knock on Purdue, but they got there with, I believe it was like 4 losses. Got to Indianapolis, that is, and played for a Big Ten title. So for Matt Rhule, it's doable to turn it around in the first year in Lincoln, but you got to start in the trenches to get this thing headed the right direction. Really quickly, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we'd love to have you at the party. We do content, like I said, every single day. We're live on Tuesdays. We're live on Thursdays, 2 Eastern, 1 Central. We want you here, all right? Also, follow me on the socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. Another first-year coach that has got the most charisma, the most juice in the entire country, a man who's made it very clear he is going to hit the portal, Deion Sanders, the new head coach at Colorado. Now, for Deion Sanders, I'm operating with the assumption that he's going to bring in a lot of his own skill players because he had a lot of ballers on his team in Jackson State. Travis Hunter being one of them, waiting to see what he does. Shedeur Sanders, it sounds like pretty much without a doubt going to be his quarterback. So that's kind of the world we're living in right now for Jackson State and for what Colorado's going to be going forward. But my primary concern for Deion Sanders and what I think he should address in the transfer portal is the offensive line. Because the talent gap that's most evident from the FCS level to the FBS level, coming from someone who's played at both levels, it's the offensive line. And that's not to knock either school, but the reality is at Colorado, that's where you have the most catching up to do. Because like Deion said, he's bringing his Louis luggage. And a lot of that luggage is the skill players. But how you go from being a good team to a great team in year one is being able to get those big boys up front. So targeting guys like a Johnny Cornelius, who at the time of us being live 108 Central on Thursday is still uncommitted. He's actually taken a visit to Nebraska. Keep an eye on that. Javion Cohen, a guy who started a lot of games at Alabama. We're going to talk more about this in a second, but he's someone I would also go after from Deion Sanders. Getting big human beings to move other big human beings against their will is how you build successful football teams. And the teams that play for games in January, teams that play in the college football playoff and win their conference, they're tough football teams. That was the difference last year, or I guess a few weeks ago rather, between USC and Utah. USC, a lot of great skill, but Utah, with their big boys up front, just asserted their dominance, play after play, played bully ball. And that's why they won both those games against USC, ended up being conference champions. So for Neon Deion, you have a great engine in the car. Get you some tires. Get you some tires can go off-road on that line of scrimmage that can push some boys around. It's a big thing I'm looking at for Deion Sanders. Hugh Freeze inherited a very interesting situation at Auburn. I've made it known before on this program, I think that they have a number of places they need to retool. I think Auburn, from a personnel perspective, is reeling a little bit. So the transfer portal for them is going to be really exciting because they have the NIL resources now to compete at the level that they want to compete at in terms of getting premier players. But I think for Auburn, my question would be, do you think Robbie Ashford at quarterback is the solution next year to win as many games as you expect to win? Now, that expectation could differ from fan to fan, but my feel on it is you probably want to win somewhere in the range of 8 to 9 games in your first year under Hugh Freeze. Do you think Robbie Ashford gives you the best chance to do that? If you do, great. Don't listen to me. If you don't, though, I think, and I don't personally, no knock on Robbie Ashford, I just think that's important for them to move the ball forward, to kind of refresh this roster. And the transfer portal is becoming more and more similar to the high school recruiting format in the sense that once you get a quarterback, that's a centerpiece for your transfer portal class. So you get the right guy in there. Let's get wild and say you get Devin Leary as your quarterback at Auburn. Well, then guess what? Other pieces are going to hear about that. Other receivers or the running backs, linemen, going to hear about that and say, you know what? They're actually probably going to be okay next year. I want Devin Leary throwing me the football. I want to, be able to play next to him in the back, but I want to block for him. That's the kind of tone I think it sets if you're able to get a premier weapon at the quarterback position. I'm not saying it's Devin Leary. I'm just saying I think you might need to upgrade that to be as successful as you hope to be going forward if you're the Auburn Tigers. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin has a very interesting situation. He just made a hire for Phil Longo to be his offensive coordinator in Madison. I love that hire. It's a total change of pace for what Wisconsin's going to be going forward. They are going to be a little bit more prolific in how they go about things. They're going to throw it around the yard a little bit more. Now, here's the first thing I would say. You need to re-recruit Braylon Allen. He has made it exceedingly clear he wants to be at Wisconsin. Now, a lot of his desire to stay at Wisconsin centered around Jim Leonhard being in Madison. And Jim Leonhard, former interim coach, former defensive coordinator for Wisconsin State, is going to coach the bowl game, and then he's going to make other arrangements. So re-recruit Braylon Allen, first and foremost, all right? Make sure he stays on your football team. I think getting the quarterback to make this system work for Phil Longo is equally important. So Auburn and Wisconsin both need quarterbacks, I think, for different reasons. For the quarterback position at Wisconsin, it's basically a whole new branding of your program, right? Because it's not going to be the put 4 tight ends on the field, play smash mouth football, and throw the ball on 4th and 1. Or maybe you throw the ball on 3rd and 2. Like, it's not going to be situational spider 3-wide banana stuff for those of you that know that reference. I think for Wisconsin to get to where they expect to be and to get back to winning the Big Ten West, which is a very winnable conference, like we already said, or very winnable side of that conference, rather, Phil Longo needs to get a quarterback that fits his system. Auburn needs a quarterback just to get the whole thing headed the right direction. But for Wisconsin, with the new OC, bringing in a quarterback to match that system, I think is paramount. Because Graham Mertz is gone. The rest of the roster doesn't have a ton more to be excited about at the quarterback spot, that is. A lot of guys on the roster, period, to be excited about. But at the quarterback spot, I don't think you have your solution in-house. So get a guy that can run the system and can evolve with how Wisconsin is going to evolve, is what I'm trying to tell you. So to recap it all for you, Matt Rhule in Nebraska, continue this tough trend, or trying to be tough, rather, and get some big boys on the defensive line. For Coach Prime, he's bringing the Louis luggage. A lot of that luggage will be at the skill position. Get you some big boys on the offensive line to be the off-road tires to what you're already going to have on that roster. Now, Hugh Freeze needs a quarterback. If you think Robbie Ashford's the situation, or excuse me, the solution to that situation, great. I feel otherwise. I'd love to be wrong. But if you get a premier quarterback at Auburn with the NIL resources that they now have, I think you could attract even more talent. Could be a domino effect. I'd get a quarterback if I'm Auburn. Now, for Wisconsin, going to be a complete rebrand of that offense with the new OC, Phil Longo, coming from North Carolina. Did some great things with Drake May there. I would love for them to get another quarterback, or rather a new quarterback, to develop with the direction that that program is heading, with the direction that that offense is heading. So first-year coaches, the expectations, they keep on ramping higher and higher and higher in year one. Is it fair or not? I don't know. A lot of other first-year coaches seem to be doing just fine. Use the portal as a weapon. Use the portal to your advantage to get the talent that you need in-house. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.